We have the whole assembly rolled out of the garage here. We got the Camaro lifted up. We are ready to lift it up higher, slide it on under. We got a seatbelt as a strap, that way we don't have to get under the car. We'll just pull on this, have one person on the outside pushing. Trans jack again, and let's see how it rolls. Why did it just... It's not coming. Hold on. It's not going at all. That means there's no weight on it.
What do you mean it's not going? It's almost the move.
Yeah, but not with the dolly. I mean, I can turn it side to side like this, but it's not going to get us there. Is it on the ground?
You gotta tell me.
Yeah, pull again.
Go.
Okay, stop. Go ahead.
Hang on. It has to go this way now. Ready?
Which way?
This way.
Oh, to the right. Yeah.
Ready?
Go ahead.
More?
Yep. Okay.
You got it, I think.
I think we went too far.
Not too far. I'm waiting for you to say stop. I'm not saying stop.
Little by little. Keep going. Okay, hold on.
Whoa. Whole thing more. As you see, the engine, subframe, it's all back in the car, and it went pretty smoothly. The hardest part was lining up the crossmember bolts. Shock tower bolts were no problem, but I would say get your shock tower bolts in, but keep them loose on the nuts and the bolts. And then focus on getting your rear crossmember in and bolted in before you tighten down the shocks, because we were slightly crooked, and with the shocks tightened, it was not moving. So we had to loosen it, shimmy it, and we're good now. I actually had a jack under the subframe to help bring it up, to give me, to bring it up to where the bolts tighten. So it all worked out. Now we have this huge wiring mess, and we have a few other things like power steering needs to be hooked up again, and brake lines. So let's just dive into some of the wiring, do what we can from above before we have to do everything else below tomorrow. So about 2 hours in, and all the wiring in the front above, up top, has been completed. PCM's in, the wire harness that goes inside the passenger footwell is done,
all the wires here. Got the negative terminal hooked up to a ground on the engine block. It goes on the front of this passenger head. A few grounds over there that I haven't quite bolted in yet. Still kind of waiting to see the whole picture. And got the brake lines, got master cylinder back in, power steering lines are hooked up, fuel lines are hooked up, spark plug wires are hooked up. So really up top we just got to do the AC compressor, finish off the grounds, got to do the positive terminal. So at this point everything is buttoned up at least enough for a first start. The only thing I don't have is there's a ground here, not quite sure where that goes. I'm assuming somewhere in the front accessories here, and I'm pretty sure this plug is for the AC compressor, and we don't need that to start. No coolant, but we do have oil and transmission fluid in it now, and that should be just enough for a start. No exhaust on the bottom, so it's just the manifolds. So what I'm going to do is unplug the ignition and the fuel injectors. That way I can crank it until I see oil pressure. We may have to prime the system, hopefully not, but if we do, let's be prepared for that. Okay, the car has battery power, it's all hooked up. So what we're gonna do is just crank it, and it won't start because I unplugged the injectors. But we wanna watch the oil pressure gauge right here and make sure it goes up. Get some pressure in it before we plug everything in it and fire it up. All right. Sounding a little better. There we go. There we go. That's starting to sound better. Still no oil pressure though. So pulled the spark plugs out. We're gonna crank it with spark plugs out. No compression, that way it can crank faster, hopefully build that oil pressure faster. Let's try. So this time it's gonna sound funny because no compression, but it should spin a lot faster. Nothing. Took it off of the front jack stands. Now the car is actually nose down a little bit, back end up a little bit. What we're trying to do is fill the front oil pump gear area with oil to help it prime. If we get enough oil in that system, well, that prime is going to start instantly instead of taking forever and working out all the air bubbles. So I overfilled it. We are now at about 7.5 quarts. And it takes about 4.5 quarts normal, so about 3 quarts over full. Let's see if this is enough. Okay, now we have 8.5 quarts in it. Spark plug wires back in, PCM ignition fuse back in. Now our fuel gauge is working. I wonder if the oil pump pressure gauge doesn't work similar to how the fuel pump wasn't working. Fuel pump gauge, or fuel gauge. Alright. We are building oil pressure. Let's go. Crank one more time. Alright, we are up to 60. We have oil pressure. Let's drain that excess fluid out. Drain the excess oil. We are now right where we're supposed to be with about 5 quarts, 5.5 quarts, somewhere around there. So now everything's hooked up, fuses are back in. We should have fuel pump now, we should have ignition. Let's crank it over. It should fire up immediately. Oh wow. It sounds like it's running good, which is great. Open headers, obnoxious, but it's running good. Yeah, that engine is healthy. That is a good relief. Okay, let's shut it off because we don't have any coolant in it, but that is good to know. Well, at this point, wheels are torqued. The car is good. The last thing is just fluids. So I need to add power steering fluid. I need to go and get power steering fluid. And then since this is a track car, we need to run distilled water, not coolant, so I need to pick up some of that. And the interior is still a mess. Not really concerned because this is really simple to do. But pretty sure, actually 100% sure, it's gonna need the brakes bled. And we are starting to lose daylight, so we may not be wrapping this up today. I gotta run to the store real quick and we'll see, but we might need to extend this another day. Well, as you can see, I have drove the Camaro and turned it around. You can hear the fans going. It's actually hot. There's still air in the coolant system, so I'm working on bleeding it. I need to turn it around because this part is higher up. So, but I bled all 4 brakes and the clutch pedal, and we are good. Has .4 fluid in it. And yeah, so running good. Now there is a tick noise, and let me show you this. It's a little concerning. Sounds good, just fine. Now when I give it a little bit of gas, if you heard that tick at the end, a little bit of gas, and when I decel, you hear the noise. Well, the high fans are on now. So some time has passed. I think my BCM just started going out, so my windows and radio stopped working. So just hot wired the window to go up. But so back to the noise that we hear. When I rev it, and on decel, you start to hear that clatter at the end. And it's only on decel at the end once you're going back to idle. When you're above 2 grand or so, like, it goes away. Gone. Comes back. And I don't know what it is. Because it consistently goes away. When it's cold, it makes it a little more, but once it's warmed up, it goes away all the time. Now, I've done like taking a pipe to the ear, listening. It's not the valve train. That was the first thing I thought, lifter tick. But since it goes away with a high RPM, I don't think it's that, and I have consistently good oil pressure. The other thing is, could the front crank be damaged? It's making it right now. Yeah, could the front crank pulley be damaged? I guess those are known for making a tapping noise. I don't know. I don't hear it coming from the top of the engine. I don't hear it coming from the bottom of the engine. It's not coming from the transmission. It definitely sounds like the front in the pulleys section. Now, I ran it with the belt off and the noise was still there, so it's none of the accessory pulleys. If anything, it's the crank pulley. And it's consistent, but I really don't think, I don't think this is a hurt engine. I think it sounds good and it feels good on this short little test drive I did. So that's where I'm gonna leave it. I'm sure we'll dive back in and hopefully find out for certain where that noise is coming from. But other than that, I have a lot of work to do. apparently my BCM is going out, so looks like I'm going to be doing some soldering. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.